Comparison is Killing Me Slowly by Natasha Romanoff Official, A Shade of Green. Chapter 1. Some Genius Kid from Tennessee. Peter bounced on his toes impatiently, waiting for the elevator doors to open. He was ecstatic. The Avengers were finally back home after a month-long mission, busting some wannabe Hydra facility. There was just so much he had to tell them, and so much more he just really wanted to tell them. He couldn't wait to show Bucky the new prosthetic arm he had finally finished developing, to show Natasha his college-level Russian test that he had aced, to show Rhodey all the Iron Patriot memes he had made, that had consequently gone viral, to show Bruce the results for a couple of experiments he had done on himself. "Peter, all the Avengers are in the common room. Would you like me to bring you there instead?" Friday's voice chimed through the small glass elevator. Peter thought for a moment and then shook his head. "No, I'll go to the lab first. There's something I want to show Tony." "What is it?" Friday asked. The AI was so conversational to Peter that he was almost positive that Tony had added some coding just for him. "It's this robot thing I got from school. Since today was the last day before summer break, they were throwing out a bunch of stuff from the shop and I found this guy. He wasn't working at all, but I want to see if Tony and I can fix him up." Then Peter grinned. "He can be my dummy." "That's great, Peter," the AI answered, and the elevator stopped. Peter rushed out the doors as they opened and hurried into the lab. It was empty. Friday, where's Tony?" Peter asked. "He is upstairs with the rest of the Avengers." "Oh," Peter said. "I guess I should have listened to you, huh?" He walked over to his desk and carefully laid the robot out. "All right, Fry, let's go see our psychotic family." He walked over to the elevator and the doors closed behind him, immediately moving up. He paced from side to side, a slight excited spring in his step, not knowing what a hellscape his life was about to become. In 3, 2, 1... The elevator doors opened and Peter immediately jumped out and yelled for his grand entrance. "You're back!" His voice echoed through the empty room. Peter looked around, confused. "Fry, I thought you said they were in the common room." "They have moved to the kitchen, Peter." "Of course they have." Peter rolled his eyes, a slight smile on his face, and rushed into the kitchen. He pushed into the room with his on-brand level of too much energy, and grinned at the group gathered around. Even though their backs were turned, he said loudly, "You're all back!" Nobody turned, but all burst into laughter at whatever they were facing. Peter's eyebrows furrowed. Were they laughing at him? A slight tingle went down his spine. Why were they ignoring him? Had he done something wrong? He went to stand with the group and tried to see what they were looking at, his chin resting on Rhodey's shoulder as he peered between everyone. "Peter!" Peter jumped at the loud noise and nearly fell over as his uncle realised who was leaning on his shoulder. Rhodey pulled him into a warm hug. "Oh, Peter, we've missed you." He pulled away. "I'm surprised you didn't make some grand entrance or something." Peter laughed. "I tried twice and nobody heard me." "How we know he's Tony's," Natasha said, sliding over to pull Peter into a hug. "Have you been working on your Russian?" she asked.
"Я делаю успехи,"
he answered. A slight smile curled her lips.
"Так я вижу, малыш-паук."
Peter grinned at the nickname Natasha, Bucky and Wanda had given him, and turned to face the super soldier himself. He let Bucky pull him into a tight hug and smiled into his shoulder. Peter laughed internally. Why had he been worried? His family was right here, happy to see him. "Ah, Peter, you're back." Tony emerged from the group of smiling Avengers and pulled him from Bucky's clutches. "There's someone I want you to meet." Peter tilted his head in confusion, and Tony took hold of his shoulder and pulled him to the front of the group, where he ended up face to face with a tall, sandy-haired teenager. The teen had to tilt his head slightly down to meet Peter's eyes. Peter, this is Harley. Harley, this is Peter. Tony buzzed with excitement as he introduced the two. This had to be important to him if he was letting his excitement show in front of everyone. So Peter gave a smile and extended his hand for a handshake. Hi. Hey, Harley accepted, shaking his hands. Where are you from again, Hurley? Sam asked. Peter thanked whatever power controlled the universe for not making him come up with a conversation topic, and listened to Harley, deciding not to correct Sam's mistake. Tennessee, he answered simply. It's much more quiet out there too. I've never seen so many people in one place before. Peter laughed. You get used to it. Yeah, Harley answered with a grin. How many times I gotta get mugged before that happens? Peter laughed again, a genuine laugh. Harley really wasn't bad. In fact, he was kind of excited to get to know this guy. They were both the same age, with similar interests and levels of intelligence, apparently. It would be kind of fun to have a third in the lab with him and Tony, and since Harley was going to be spending break at the tower too, they would have plenty of time to get to know each other. It would be fun, like having an older brother or something. Peter had been wrong. Oh, so very wrong. Yeah, Harley was smart. That fact just kept getting shoved down his throat, and it was starting to be unbearable. He knew Harley was smart because every time he did anything, the older teen would find some way to outdo him, would find some way to pull Tony's attention away, make Tony forget the praise he had just been giving Peter and redirect it. Harley was polite too. Pepper adored him and would often even ask for his help in the kitchen when she cooked, or have him help set the table. He always said please and thank you, which Peter did too, but still. Tony always made fun of Harley when he did that. Oh wow, another thank you. You've gotten so much more polite over the years, kid. Kid. Harley and Peter also had similar interests, which shouldn't have annoyed Peter, but seriously, if Tony had wanted to replace him, then he should have at least sent him away first. But then again, Peter knew Harley was too good for him to compare them all the time. Peter would always come up short, would always be chosen second when he was put up against a witty, sarcastic, genius teen. He was a witty, sarcastic, genius teen, but not as witty or sarcastic or genius as Harley. Harley was like Peter, but smarter, older, better. Now he knew why Tony had wanted him around. Maybe that was why he had wanted Peter around too, because Harley was too busy being a good kid and supporting his family back home. So, yeah, Peter was bitter. It had been a whole month of Harley this, Harley that, and maybe later, Peter, I said I'd help Harley, and not tonight, Peter, I'm busy with Harley. Summer break was already halfway over, and yet he and Tony had barely been around each other at all. First, he'd be left out of little things like breakfasts. They wouldn't wait for him, and by the time he came down, they would be gone. Peter could deal with that. He usually made himself breakfast anyway. But then they started forgetting to invite him to lab sessions. They always apologised and invited him to stay once they noticed their mistake. Or he found them. But it wasn't the same. Peter began to join in less and less, and eventually even started avoiding it altogether. When he needed to fix up something for his Spider-Man suit, he would wait until the lab was empty. If he needed help, he would have Friday help him. Finally, Peter seemed to have faded so far in the background that even Pepper didn't notice when he didn't show up for dinners. One time, Tony, Pepper, Harley and the rest of the Avengers had gone out for a family dinner and forgotten Peter. Nobody had even noticed until they got home and found Peter sitting by himself in the common room, eating some instant mac and cheese and watching a movie. They had all apologised profusely and offered to watch a movie with him, but Peter really didn't want their pity. He had told them that he was already done watching the movie and was actually just about to go on patrol. Of course, he hadn't let Harley hear that part. He may have taken Peter's place, but he couldn't take Peter's secrets. The Avengers had asked him to just skip patrol for one night, Peter, but how could he do that? He had already given up so much to ensure Harley had a good stay. There was no way he was giving up Spider-Man too. Which reminded him. Not only had Harley taken his spot as Tony and Pepper's makeshift son, but he had also won all the Avengers over. When Peter wasn't there, they were perfectly content with Harley, and when he was, well, it didn't matter. He had used to be their favourite kid, but he found himself withdrawing more and more from the group. He wasn't needed anymore, so what was the point? Yeah, it was immature. That was probably why they liked Harley so much. Peter heard everyone laughing heartily downstairs. They were having Saturday night game night, something he had started, by the way, and had decided to do a Mario Kart tournament. Harley was apparently winning. "Get down here!"
Паук-ребенок.
Natasha called from downstairs. "Yeah, Pete, we need a hero to save us from Harley's evil reign," Clint yelled. Peter shook his head. For all he knew, Harley would beat him, and they would realise how useless he really was. At least if he was out of the way, they wouldn't have a reason to think that. No!
Мальчик-гений.
Not again! Yeah, they had given Harley his own Russian nickname. Which shouldn't tick me off, Peter had thought to himself. It doesn't bother me. He pulled his Spider-Man suit on and asked Friday to open the window. "If anyone asks," Peter began. As if they would, his bitter thoughts interrupted. Peter shook his head. "If anyone asks, I'm just out patrolling, 'kay, Fry?" He pulled his mask on and jumped out the window, happy to finally have a break. This was what he was meant to do. This was worthwhile. Swinging around the city, stopping bad guys, saving people from nightmares. Everyone needed a little help every now and then, and Peter was here to give it. Peter's web snapped, and he fell onto a rooftop, hard. Clutching his ribs, he pulled himself up to his feet, praying that Karen hadn't just alerted the tower of his injury. His ankle burned like hell to stand on, but what choice did he have? His arms were also scraped a little, but what were a few scrapes? "Karen, did you alert anyone of what just happened?" He winced at how loud his voice was as a pounding headache clouded his senses. "No, Peter. Would you like me to?" Karen answered quietly, seemingly aware of his headache. Peter sighed. "No." Although, if he did, then they would have to notice him. He would get some attention, maybe some sympathy. "No," Peter said again, more firmly. He wasn't going to earn their attention in such a petty way. He wasn't going to beg. The teenage vigilante stood up more straight and prepared himself for a hellish journey home. He raised his hand and jumped off the building, pushing the button on his web shooter. No web came out. He tried the other one. Also empty. "Shit!" he let out as he began the quick trip down. Luckily, Peter hadn't been on a very tall building and only fell 2 stories. Also, he landed in a dumpster on something very cushy. He didn't want to think about what it was either. And while it made a very loud noise and popped his back, he was relatively uninjured. But he was also stuck quite a few miles away from the tower with no webs or car. Everyone needs a little help every now and then. What would I give for some of that right about now? But Peter shrugged the thought off. Harley needs it more than I do. It's been forever since he saw Tony. I could never take away something like that. Peter sighed and climbed out of the dumpster. "Looks like I'm walking." "That was quite a fall you took, Spider-Man." Peter looked up and with his night vision was easily able to recognise the figure walking towards him out of the shadows of the dimly lit alleyway. Director and Uncle Nick Fury. "Oh please, that was nothing. Some would even call that flying." "I'm not taking that bait, kid. I know what you want me to say and I'm not going to." Peter's shoulders slumped in a mock pout. Fine. What do you need, Mr. Director Uncle Fury, sir?" Fury rolled his eyes and ignored the ridiculously long title that Peter had refused to stop calling him. Out of respect or for the joke, he wasn't sure anymore. "Look, Spider-Man, I'm just going to cut to the chase. I think S.H.I.E.L.D. might have a mission for you." Peter immediately perked up. "What kind?" A stealth mission. We just need you to break into somewhere, collect some information, etc., etc. You know, I can't tell you anymore while we're out here. Fury motioned around the alleyway and then turned to the street. Follow me and I'll explain. Peter immediately followed the older agent out of the alley and into some armoured black SUV. Make yourself comfortable, Peter, Fury said. It may take you a while to tell you everything. Peter pulled his mask off and settled into the chair. You know I don't have all night, right? Peter joked. I know. How about I make it up to you and buy you some food? Fury asked. He, like everyone else, was very fond of Peter. They didn't get to see each other very often, mostly because of how busy he was, but also because Tony didn't like it when he was around Peter. Probably because he sometimes asked the kid to do missions like these. After a couple of hours, Fury had laid out the bare essentials for the mission and given him new contact information and a meal. He parked the car in front of the tower and looked over to the kid in his passenger seat. I need an answer, at latest in 2 days. Any questions? Yeah. Is it Tony or Avengers approved? Peter asked, folding his mask over and over in his hands. Fury sighed. No, they don't know about it. I personally don't really want you to go on the mission, but I'm the spokesman of the group and I don't have much of a say. You are the unanimous choice for this mission. It's... Fury shrugged with a disapproving look. It's your decision. All right, Peter said. I'll think about it. He jumped out of the car, pulling his mask back on. Thanks for the ride, he called. Not like I had much of a choice, Fury answered with a smile. Not after finding you taking a nap in a dumpster. Hey, I had just gone flying off a building. Fury rolled his eyes, hating that he was about to indulge the kid with a Pixar movie reference. But it was Peter. He, and anyone else that knew him, would do anything to make him smile. Please, kid, that was just falling with style. He rolled up the window and drove away. Thank you for listening. I really hope you enjoyed this chapter. Have a lovely rest of your day.